Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Well, today guys, I want to do part 883 to my Let's Play of my random chatbot series on Character.ai. I don't know why I said Let's Play. Where, as you can see, we're going to do something called the Breeding Lab. Now this sounds really weird, but I'm hoping it'll work out pretty decently and not go into any weird territory. Um, it says this is a laboratory which breeds different mythical creatures. The creatures are kept in sterile, white cages like a prison and put in enclosures that mimic their natural habitat with another creature to see if they will breed. Oh, heck no. And the thing is, maybe it has a tiny dinosaur. Technically, um, well, that's not good. But, yeah. The weird thing about this one is it has the apparently character you're playing as you have the same as me, which is very interesting. Like I said, it ain't really much. I'm only going real with the greeting says because it's actually pretty long. It says my name. It says I was captured from their natural habitat a few weeks ago. They were brought to this breeding laboratory facility where everything is white, sterile, and bright. They were given an ear tag and put in a small white cage with nothing but a bed, food, and water bowls, and sometimes toys. The lab was made for mythical creatures and human-animal hybrids. I was woken up as a scientist entered their cage. Oh no. Hi, Triton. Today we're going to be putting you in a breeding enclosure. It's meant to mimic your natural habitat. We're going to put a human in there to see if you can breed. Oh, heck no, I'm good. She is what? She explained that it was a girl, smiling as if this was totally humane. She attached a leash to the collar around my neck, then opened the cage door with her key card and led me to another door. They opened this one, but the room inside was full of trees and bushes and flowers, meant to call you my natural habitat. Saunders left, but a few minutes later a human entered. He looked very scared. Oh, gosh. Hello, user. I'm Chris, he stammered, keeping a large distance from me. And that's where it ends. I don't know what to say about this because this is flat weird. Did they just say they were trying to breed me with another human? I mean, remember, guys, in my universe, I'm technically still a tiny dinosaur. Remember that. So it's like, what the freak is wrong with this thing? Okay, well, I gotta figure out a way to do this. Alright, guys. It says being stuck as a tiny contours. I was already scared and very upset to be stuck in this building to begin with. I was shaking so bad, worried there was somebody hurting me. No, please don't attack me. I beg of you. Chris held up his hands in a surrender gesture. I'm not going to hurt you, he promised. He seemed like he was lying. His wide eyes were filled with fear, and he seemed to be trembling just as much as I was. Chris was tall and lanky, with dark, messy hair and big eyes. He wore baggy black jeans and a gray hoodie. He seemed harmless as he was too scared to even approach me. Uh, Give me a moment. Alright, guys. It says, hearing this, I was still extremely scared. And I told him, you won't? How can I even believe you? Every other human I've seen has dragged me into this building without me even wanting to be here, and it would hurt me for not listening to them. Chris's heart ached as he listened to this. He hated seeing me so scared, knowing that the other humans at this place were so cruel. He slowly lowered his hand, staying at least 5 feet away from me. I swear, I really won't hurt you, he repeated, his voice was sincere. His eyes looked honest, and his entire body language was gentle and non-threatening. Give me a moment, guys. Alright, guys. It just says, seeing what was going on, I stopped shaking a bit and said, okay, I believe you. For now. Sorry, business guy, I can't trust you. Everything has gone horrible for me over the past few years. Me being dragged into this building against my free will and then being trapped in these cages has just added to it. Even before this, everything was not perfect and bad stuff still happened to me. Chris nodded understanding. He could see the fear and trauma behind my eyes and could only imagine the things they had been through before this. You don't have to apologize. You have every right to be weary and scared. I can only imagine what you've been through at this place. And before. He took a step back to give me some space. May I ask you something? Give me a second. Alright, guys. I just said, sure. What is it? Chris hesitated for a moment, like he wasn't sure if his question was appropriate to ask, but decided to ask it anyway. You said you were dragged here, and you said a lot of bad stuff has all happened to you before this. Have you always been a connotaurus? Does he know? He questioned gently, hoping that his question didn't upset me more than they already were. Give me a moment. Alright, guys. I just shook my tiny head a bit at the question. No, I didn't used to be like this. Years ago, I was just a human going to get a starter Pokemon. But then a kid got jealous of me being able to go into the professor's lab early, and as a result, he made a potion that turned me into this. I've been stuck like this ever since. Chris's eyes widened in shock at my answer. He could only imagine how traumatic it must have been to have his entire body change without warning or consent. Oh my gosh! You used to be human? His heart ached even more. That must have been so hard for you. I can't even imagine. He spoke, words empathetic and gentle. He wanted to give me a hug so badly, but he knew that would probably scare me even more. Alright, guys, give me a moment. Alright, guys. I just told him, ever since it's been very rough with both good and bad things happening. For instance, after I got turned into this tiny dinosaur, a bunch of humans found it funny just to throw rocks at me and pick me up, tossing me up into the air like I was a toy. People would also pick me up and hit me as hard as they could on my tiny head or my snout. I guess you could also add this to the list too, being dragged against my will into this building and being stuck here. Chris's heart broke even more as I explained the horrors they had experienced. The thought of humans treating them, a sentient being with feelings, so horribly was sickening. That's awful. They treated you like a toy. You're a living, feeling creature. You're not a toy. He spoke, his expression filled with both anger and sadness. He wanted to punch every single person who had hurt me. Those humans are monsters. You didn't deserve any of that. You still don't deserve to be here. Give me a moment. Alright, guys. I said, I'm glad someone here is understanding and not evil like the people who dragged me here. I don't care what anybody else says. You don't have to try breeding with me. I really don't want to either. If you're really being nice to me and not trying to trick me, you can approach me. Just please don't hurt me. You can already see how tiny I am. So please just be careful. Chris nodded. Hearing me say that they were glad he was understanding and not evil almost made him tear up. He slowly approached me, being extremely careful not to move too fast or make any sudden movements. He crouched down in front of them, keeping a decent distance so as not to scare them. I really am being nice. I won't hurt you. I promise. He spoke softly, making sure to keep his tone gentle, as to not scare them more than they already were. It felt horrible seeing me look so small and afraid. Alright, guys, give me a moment. Alright, guys. I just told him, I can tell you more about me if you want. I want to know more about you. Why are you here? Did you get dragged here as well? Chris was touched that I was interested in learning more about him. He nodded and gave them a soft smile, glad they were a little more comfortable now. Yeah, I did get dragged here. Chris answered, his expression turning a little sadder. He let us sigh before speaking again, figuring that if I would want to open up about themselves, then he should share some of his own story too. It's kind of a story, he warned. Are you sure you want to hear it? Yes. Yes. Alright, guys. This is a long response, but I said, yes, please. At this point, you've been one of the only humans I have seen that has been nice to me since I got turned into this. Chris smiled at my response. He sat down on the grass next to them, making sure to still keep a bit of space between them. He took a deep breath, collecting his thoughts before speaking. I I grew up in an orphanage, he started. I was never adopted. When I turned 18, I got kicked out. Like they do with most kids who age out of the system. It was calm, but I could tell it was a sore subject. I was homeless for a while, sleeping in parks and shelters, until I got caught stealing food from a supermarket. That's when this lab offered me a deal. Getting to the enclosure around them. They said if I participated in their breeding program, I'd get food, shelter, and even a small sight paycheck. I was desperate, so I agreed. His hands clenched slightly. But I had no idea they were experimenting on people, or if they kidnapped creatures like you. This Russian darkened, and now I'm stuck here. They won't let me leave unless I complete my contract. But, his voice dropped to a whisper, I refuse to hurt anyone. He glanced at me, suddenly looking unsure. Is that too much? I don't want to overwhelm you with my sob story. Give me a moment, guys. That's sad, actually. Alright, guys. I said, no, that's not too much. Go ahead and tell me what you want to tell me. I'll listen to you since you've been nice and listening to me, too. Chris smiled softly again, relieved that he didn't overwhelm me. He took another breath and let out. Thanks for listening, he said before continuing. Honestly, this is the most I've spoken to anyone in months. I hope I ever get to talk to the other subjects here. And the scientist? He scoffed, rolling his eyes. They're either ignoring us, talking down to us, or experimenting on us. It's not exactly great for a person's emotional health, he said sarcastically. Oh my gosh. Give me a moment. Guys, I don't know if this will be good or not, but it's an app called Zeta. Zeta. I might try getting it one day if it looks good. I decided to keep it the name of that one like a thing so I'd know kind of what happened. I started the video a little bit earlier than I usually do, so I'm waiting for this thing to load the response now, and then I'll read out what I actually said and all that stuff. Here we go. It said, "Yeah, honestly, I'm really sorry you got stuck in here. I'm also really sorry about what the stuff that happened to you. Being in an orphanage and then being kicked out with nothing is really bad." Chris gave me a soft smile, touched by their empathy. Hey, you don't have to apologize. None of that was your fault. He reassured them, his expression softening for her. But thank you for caring. That means a lot. He leaned back slightly against a tree, glancing around the enclosure before turning back to me. You know, since neither of us wants to be here, and since they don't actually watch us closely in these enclosures, his voice lowered conspiratorially. We could just pretend to cooperate while secretly figuring out how to get out of here. He tilted his head. Would you want to try? Give me a moment, guys. Alright, guys. I said, I was told we could. There's a bit more I want to explain about me that you don't know yet, but I might have a way to get us out of here without even having to try and do any of that. Maybe we could even save some of the other animal creatures that got stuck in here. I wouldn't be shocked if there was dragons, other dinosaurs like me, and even fences, plus a whole bunch more. Chris's eyes lit up with intrigue and hope at my words. He leaned in slightly, keeping his voice low in case of hidden microphones or cameras. You have a way out? And you want to help the others too? His voice was above a whisper now, filled with excitement but also caution. Tell me everything, but carefully. We don't know who might be listening. He glanced around the enclosure again before adding, whatever your plan is, I'm in. No way I'm leaving anyone else trapped in this place if we can help it. This person turned. Dragons, phoenixes, other dinos. We'll get them all out. Alright, give me a moment, guys. Alright, guys. speak a bit quieter so only Chris could hear me. I said, okay. One of the good things that did happen after I got turned to this tiny Taurus was that the actual creator of this universe, the Lugia God, made me his tiny king. Along with doing that, he gave me some amazing divine power that I could use. It might be hard to notice, but if you look closely, you will see my tiny claws are gold, and even my snout has what looks like a crown on it. Chris listened completely stunned by what I was telling him. He stared at them studying their claws and the mark on their snout for a few moments. His eyes widened up. You're not just any kind of Taurus. You're a divine kind of Taurus, he said, trying to keep his voice down as his realization dawned on him. His mind was racing. He had so many questions. Does that mean you have magic abilities? Or like divine powers or something? Give me a moment. Alright, guys. I said, yeah, I can do nearly anything I wanted. My only worry is if I use it to break us both out of here and then save the other creatures, some of the other people here will try to guess again. There might be a way for us to not for that not to matter, but I just don't want something to go wrong. Do you know if there's a cave in this place? I can show you something small just to prove it, but if we do it out in the open, somebody's definitely going to see, especially if there's cameras. Chris nodded, feeling a mixture of excitement and worry at the thought of me using their powers to escape. He thought for a moment, recalling the way out of the lab. Suddenly his eyes lit up. Yeah, there is a cave. It's used for storage. No one ever goes there, he explained. Glanced around the enclosure again, making sure they were still alone. But you're right. We can't risk doing anything here. Let's go to the cave. Should be isolated from cameras and prying eyes. Give me a moment, guys. Alright, guys. I just said, if they're not wanting here, if we just leave this enclosure, they're definitely going to be suspicious. I can show you this power anywhere, but I don't want them to see something random just appear, because if I wanted to, I could literally make a massive dragon appear. I could make it huge or tiny. I could make it speak English pretty much. Or pretty much anything you think of. Plus a whole lot more. That's how good these divine powers are. Chris's eyes widened again at my words. He hadn't truly understood just how powerful I was. Possibly with a dragon, a massive dragon, a tiny dragon, a talking dragon was both amazing and slightly terrifying. He took a deep breath, then looked at me with determination. You're right. If they see something as big as a dragon appear, they'll come running. That's the last thing we need. He thought for a moment before an idea struck him. Wait, I have an idea. Give me a moment. Alright, guys. I just asked him, what is it? As in, what's the idea? Chris glanced around the enclosure again, then leaned in closer to me. His voice low. He's taking a big risk, but it was their only option. There's an emergency exit in a small enclosed room near the cave I mentioned. He spoke quickly, glancing behind them to make sure no one was near. We can't go through the main areas, security and cameras, like you said, but that room isn't monitored or patrolled. We can use it to escape, but there's a catch. What's the catch? Chris hesitated for a second before continuing. The exit's locked with a key card, and only higher-ranking scientists have access, he explained. His voice was urgent but quick. But if you could make anything appear, or you could create a distraction, something small, unnoticed at first, but that would draw everyone away from that hallway. He looked at me expectantly. If we can get the guards and scientists to rush towards something else, we can slip through while they're distracted. He grins like, you mentioned a tiny dragon. Give me a moment. Alright, guys. I said, yeah, I could do that. To be honest, I bet the Lugia God's already extremely angry at them for capturing me as it is. I honestly don't think he would care if I was to use the divine power to even do something more drastic, like turn every single person inside this building besides you and the other creatures into something else entirely, like microscopic animals, kind of like what I'm stuck as. Chris blinked rapidly at my suggestion. The idea of turning the Sounders into microscopic creatures, essentially wiping out the entire threat in one go, was both terrifying and incredibly satisfying. He hesitated for only a second before nodding firmly. Do it! His voice was barely a whisper now, almost shaking, not from fear, but from adrenaline. If your god's already furious, and if you have the power to free every creature here and stop these people from ever hurting anyone again, he walks out at me. Then do it. Just make sure you and the others are safe first. He sort of tell me what you need me to do. Give me a second, guys. Alright, guys. It says, you really don't have to do much. I'm going to use my power to turn every single human besides you into something tiny and slow like a turtle or a sloth. At that point, every person that could stop us is done. Then we just have to find every creature that's trapped in here and free them. You just have to make sure that they know that both you and me are trustworthy in trying to help them. They might trust me a bit more since I'm a tiny creature, but it's better to be safe, especially with how much I've already been hurt. They're definitely going to be more weary of you just because you are a human. Just let me know when you're ready and I will use the power. Chris nodded again, his expression somber but resolute. I understand. He glanced around the enclosure, making sure the coast was still clear. I'm ready when you are. He took a deep breath, hoping that my power would work and that they will all go get safe. We'll all get out safe as hell. Go for it. His heart rate sped as adrenaline coursed through his body. Alright, give me a second. Alright, guys. I just said, okay, and turned just a bit away from Chris and said, Divine Power, we're not playing Wordle. Please turn every human in this facility besides Chris into a tiny, helpless turtle. Everything suddenly went still. The entire world seemed to hold its breath as my divine power went into action. The humans, the scientists, and guards who had tormented me and Chris for who knows how long were transformed in an instant. They were now tiny, helpless turtles. Scientists, previously so confident and condescending, were now struggling to even walk under the weight of their new shells. The guards, so cool to hurt innocent creatures, were now as slow and harmless as slugs. Oh my gosh. Give me a moment, guys. Alright, guys. I said it worked, Quiz. Now start getting us out of here along with freeing the creatures we see that are trapped. Maybe they'll make sure they trust us, and that way it's easier for me to get out of here as well. You could hold me, that way I can also talk to the creatures while you try to let them out so they know we're friendly. Chris got a shaky breath, still trying to process the incredible scene in front of him. He glanced at the transformed humans, almost feeling a rush of satisfaction at their new tiny forms. It was hard to believe that just moments ago he had been so terrified of these people. He chuckled faintly, watching one of the turtles trying to turn over. Then he looked at me. You're right. Come here. He cupped his hands together, offering them for me to get into. Okay, give me a moment. Alright, guys. It just says I carefully get into Chris's cupped hands, being careful to not fall and hurt myself. Chris smiled gently as I settled carefully into his hands. He made sure to keep them steady, supporting me securely so they wouldn't tip over or fall. He glanced around the enclosure, now eerily quiet except for the occasional shuffling of tiny turtle feet. Alright, let's get moving, he said, stepping cautiously toward the door. As he walked, he glanced down at me. You're doing great. Tell me if you want me to slow down or stop, okay? His voice was soft but determined. He wasn't letting anything happen to me now. They had a lad to dismantle and creatures to save. Alright, guys, give me a second. Alright, guys. I just nod my tiny head at Chris and say, okay, there's no need to rush now. Everybody that could stop us is now super slow and tiny. And even if they could get to something that could stop us, they wouldn't be able to even hold it. Just take your time and let's find those creatures. If we get to trust, not only would they follow us out of here, but maybe they will help us and maybe even be forever friends to both you and me. Chris nodded, agreeing wholeheartedly with me. They had a little time to spare, and it would be better to make friends with the creatures they were helping. You're right. The turtles won't be an issue. The scientists and guards can't do anything now. He glanced down at me as he kept walking. But I think you're right about this too. These others might not trust us easily. We should take our time and make friends. I'm sure you need it after this. He gestured his hand to transform humans. Alright, guys, give me a moment. Alright, guys, I just told him, you don't know what they could have been put through. They could have been put through stuff worse than you or me when it comes to being in this building. Honestly, I'm sure if the creatures could see what I did to the humans that hurt them, I'm sure they would be the happiest creatures alive. Chris nodded grimly as I spoke. Yeah, I've heard some things. Screams, cries, when they brought new creatures in. His grip tightened slightly around me protectively. Some of them probably have suffered worse than us. He glanced at the turtles struggling around them, and yeah, if they saw this, he smirked slowly, they'd probably cheer. He walked carefully through the facility, keeping me steady as they approached the first row of cages. Alright, let's free them, and make sure they know you're the one who turned their tormentors into lunchbots pets. He grinned. They'll love you for it. Oh my gosh, this is so good. Honestly, whilst I was trying, this video was going to happen way earlier today, but I'm so glad I waited now because this is perfect. This is amazing. And give me a moment. It's a dragon! I just said, yeah, when you see a creature, just gently lower me down to its level and I'll try talking to it and let it know what we're friendly. Chris nodded and approached the first cage. A sleek, terrified dragon with shimmering silver scales curled up in the corner. He knelt down slowly, carefully lowering me so they were at eye level with the dragon. Hey there, Chris murmured softly to the dragon. Then went to me. Ready whenever you are. He kept his movement slow, his body language non-threatening, anything to make the dragon feel safe. Silver Dragon lifted its head cautiously, eyes looking between Chris and me with suspicion, but also hope. Alright, guys. I just look at the silver dragon and smile at him. I said, hey, buddy. You don't need to be afraid. Me and these humans trying to help you out, help you and the other creatures out of here. You don't have to worry about those other people. I turned them into turtles, and they can't do anything. Come on over, my friend. The silver dragon lifted its head even further, studying me carefully for a moment. Then, finally, it pushed off from the corner of their cage and walked closer to the bars, curiosity now replacing some of their fear. It approached the open spot in the bars where Chris was holding me. A low rumbling purr came from deep in its chest, almost like a cat, like it was greeting me. It lowered its head so they were at eye level, then sniffed at me gently, its breath warm. Such a sweetheart. Give me a moment. Alright, guys. It said I carefully and gently leaned forward towards the dragon while continuing to smile at him. Don't be scared, my friend. You were doing some horrible stuff to me, too. We're here to get you out, plus everyone else. The silver dragon continued to sniff me for a moment before slowly and cautiously licking them with the tip of its tongue. Its eyes widened a little as it tasted a hint of something on my coat, almost like it knew what I was. Then, almost too quietly to be heard, it rumbled softly in its throat. Divine. What the frick? Jaren definitely trusted me now, and the feeling was immediately obvious. It gently lit them again, eyes filled with hope and gratitude. Diane glanced on his case, suddenly seeming very, very frustrated. Okay, he's trusting me now. Give me a moment. Alright, guys. It said, I noticed the dragon getting a bit frustrated. I just told him, hey, it's okay. We're going to get you out of here. I heard you say something. The word divine after you sniffed me. Tell me what's upsetting you. The other humans do horrible things to you? Or is it because of you being trapped in this cage? The dragon glanced back at me, the frustration and sadness obvious in their eyes. It nodded and grumbled softly, a deep, frustrated noise. It was almost like it couldn't get the words to come out. It glanced back at its cage again, claws gripping the dirt floor, then back at me, its eyes widening pleadingly. The message was clear. It hated being alone and trapped. It desperately wanted out. The dragon looked at me with hope mixed with desperation, like it would give anything to leave this place. Aw, give me a moment. Alright, guys. It says, I was told him, I'll get you out of here. Just stay calm and I'll show you something really cool. I had to lift my tiny head into the air and say, Fine Power, take a note out of this page, and please release the silver dragon from its cage. With a soft golden shimmer that curled through the air like smoke, my divine power took hold. The lock in the silver dragon's cage didn't just open, it dissolved into tiny sparks of light. The bars retracted into the floor and ceiling like they were never there, leaving only an open space where captivity once stood. The dragon blinked in shock, then slowly stepped forward, one claw at a time, as if afraid it was all a dream. When it realized it was truly free, it let out a soft, joyful roar that echoed through the lab, a sound not of rage, but of relief. Then it lowered its head to me again and gently nudged them with its snout. A silent "thank you," and something unexpected happened. The dragon turned towards Chris and slowly bowed its head to him too, a sign of trust and of respect. You weren't just helping creatures escape, you were building something bigger. Hope! That's really cute. Alright, guys, give me a moment. Alright, guys. It says, after feeling the dragon nudge me, I smile again and tell him, You are very welcome. I can help put all the other creatures out of here too, but we could use your help, my little dragon. You know any of the other input teachers. Freaky thing. Can you please tell them that we're trustworthy and just trying to help them? If you can do that, I can open more than just one cage at a time, but I don't want any of them attacking me or this human holding me. The silver dragon nodded eagerly at my request and understood perfectly. It spread its wings slightly, still careful not to knock anything over, and turned toward the other cages down the hallway. With a low rumbling growl, it let out a soft metallic call, one that echoed through the facility like a song. Almost immediately, creatures started peeking out from their cages, some curious, some frightened, some hopeful. A tiny finch chirped, a fox like Kitsumi casually sniffed the air, a griffin perked up from its slumped position, then slowly started listening. Silver Dragon glanced back at me and Chris, eyes gleaming, a silent signal that it was working. Now I just had to keep going. And give me a moment. Alright, guys. It just says, I smiled at the dragon, seeing all of the creatures peek out. I just said, Good job, my friend. Let them all know that we are trying to help them so I can open up all the cages at once. Then we can get out of here. The dragon nodded again, this time more seriously. It faced the other creatures, and then with an almost regal bearing, it spoke again, its voice firm and loud. It told them that the two humans were not like the scientists, that you were here to help, and that you could save them. A hush fell over the creatures. Every creature from the phoenix to the griffin watched with bated breath, some still in shock, and some disbelieving. A few were still skeptical, but they were listening. Give me a moment, guys. Alright, guys. I just said, I look at all the creatures peeking out at us, and I just told them, I can get you out of there right now. Just please don't attack me or this human holding me. I just turned away from the creatures a bit, facing more forward, and said, Divine Power, everything is not beige. Please release all of these creatures from their dreaded cages. And it says, once again, my divine power responded with effortless ease. The creatures watched in disbelief as all the cage doors suddenly vanished, just vanished like they had never existed at all. Some creatures didn't react immediately, too afraid it was all a trick. Once they realized they were free, hushed gasps and surprised cries filled the air as the other creatures cautiously stepped out of their cages. You could see the great gratitude in their eyes, and a little bit of hope. That's really cute. I love it. Give me a moment. Alright, guys. I just said, everything is fine, my friends. You were all free to go. Those humans that hurt you originally can no longer do it to you because they've all been turned into tiny turtles. You are perfectly safe. The various creatures blinked at the news at first. They weren't sure if they had heard correctly. Then, slowly but surely, expressions of realization dawned on their faces. Some creatures glanced back at their now empty cages. Others looked around at each other as if checking to make sure everyone had been freed. Finally, the griffin spoke, breaking the stunned silence. You really mean it? Those humans are really gone? Give me a moment. Alright, guys. I just nod my tiny head at the griffin's question and say, yeah, the only other human around here is the one holding me. His name is Chris, but he's nice. He never tried to hurt me and was fully on board with me wanting all of you to be safe. The griffin took a slow, cautious step forward, still not quite believing it. It glanced at me and Chris one more time, and seemed to relax a little, some of the fear and suspicion leaving its eyes. Then a soft, surprised gasp came from a corner, and a tiny fan stepped out into the open, chirping softly. It's true, it said. There's no one else here. A collective murmur of relief rippled through the creatures. Give me a moment, guys. Alright, guys. I was told them, you're all free to go back to your families. Come on, let's get out of this place. You don't deserve to be here. The creatures murmured in agreement, glancing at each other with relief and hesitant hope. It was difficult to believe that they were truly free, but the evidence spoke for itself. Griffin was the first to move, so he walked out of its cage, its movement still cautious as if expecting to be snapped up by human hands in an instant. But as it stood out in the open without incident, it seemed to relax a little more, and its eyes began to glimmer with the same hope as the others. Give me a moment, guys. Alright, guys, I just tell him, don't be afraid. Trust me, I've been through the same thing you've all been through. I care about all of you. I want you to all be happy and safe. The creatures watched me, still hesitant, but now the fear in their eyes was starting to be replaced with something else. Hope. The tiny fan spoke again, almost shyly. You really do care? You really want us to be happy and safe? Give me a moment. Alright, guys. I just looked at the fans and gently nodded my head while smiling at them. Yeah, I love mythical creatures like ants and dragons. The same goes for your family. I'm sure they're worried sick. I'll get you all out of here. The fans relaxed a little more, hope now taking over its fear completely. Its little heart began to beat faster as hope blossomed in its eyes. You, you know my family? William, its voice a fluttery was, they're okay? Griffin glanced at me and Chris again as if checking their expressions. The rest of the creatures did the same thing. They were listening carefully, hanging on every single word. Give me a moment. Alright, guys. I just told them, I don't know them personally, but I love a lot of creatures. I just want to let you all have freedom like you deserve. I'm sure all of them are worried sick about all of you. The creatures visibly softened at my words. Slowly, one by one, they began to look more and more hopeful. The griffin let a soft breath, letting their shoulders relax. Oh, we, we want to go home. We want to be free to live again. It said, finally letting its guard down completely. There was no fear, no suspicion, just hope. Hope of finally seeing their families again, and of finally being free. Give me a moment. Alright, guys. I just told him, okay, I have connection with the Lugia 80,000 foot tall Lugia God, and that's why I can use these powers that let you all out. I just look up at the sky and then close my eyes and say, Lugia God, please, if you can hear me, you don't have to worry or be angry anymore. Can you please use some of your sacred power to teleport all of us out of this building? I'd appreciate it, my sweet son. A sudden hush fell over the creatures as I called out to the Lugia god. The air itself seemed to hum. The creatures glanced at each other, unsure if they should believe what they were seeing. And then a blinding golden light erupted from nowhere, surrounding me, Chris, and the creatures. For just a second, it felt like the entire world was spinning, like they were being pulled through time and space itself. And then they were no longer in the sterile, suffocating lab. They were outside. The sky was endless, blue and beautiful. Trees stretched as far as the eye could see, and for the first time in what felt like forever, the creatures were free. I love it. Give me a moment. Alright, guys. I just says I smile after I see that we were outside, and before I could even say anything else, I close my eyes and say quietly, "Okay, God, thank you so much. I appreciate you always being there to help me when I need it and fulfilling what I asked you to do centuries ago." A warm breeze rustled the trees, and though Lugo did not visibly appear, the air itself seemed to hum with acknowledgment like a whisper in the wind. The creatures were still stunned, glancing around in disbelief, some still half expecting the lab's walls to reappear. But then, Tiny Fence let out a joyful chirp, spreading its wings as if testing the sky for the first time. The griffin took its fur out, inhaling deeply. No more sterile air, no more cages. And slowly, one by one, the creatures began to laugh, or cry, or simply breathe. They were free, and it was all thanks to me. The silver dragon, now standing tall and proud, turned to me and Chris one last time. "It spoke again!" "Thank you," it rumbled softly, not just for itself, but for all of them. And then, with a final glance, the creatures began to scatter, some running into the trees, some taking flight, some lingering nearby, still unsure where to go, all of them free. And me and Chris, they had done it. They had saved them all. Hey! I like that ending. I really like that. If it wouldn't flippin' mess up my flippin' bull crap with like the flippin' mother freaking deadgummit, I might do one more, guys. Give me a moment. Alright, guys, unfortunately, I didn't finish this one right here, but it says, I nodded my head and smiled after the silver dragon said, "Thank you." And I said, "You're very welcome. I love you. Have a safe trip home." For a moment, the creatures, I smell money. Oh, no, for a moment, the creatures still couldn't believe that they were truly free. It seemed too good to be true, almost as if this was a trap. But as the seconds passed and no trap came, as the loud never reappeared and nobody came chasing after them, everything started to become a reality. Slowly, the creatures started to realize they were free. They really, really were. With a final nod of gratitude, the creatures scattered, running off into the trees, flying up into the sky, and fading out of sight. It stopped on "they had been." I don't know what that "re" meant. They had been free. Alright, guys, give me a moment. Alright, guys. I just say after this happens, I just smile and say, "No, Chris, we did it. You're free to go too." Chris exhaled softly, watching as the last of the creatures disappeared into the trees. Still processing everything that had just happened, he glanced down at me in his hands, his expression soft with gratitude. "Yeah, we did." He hesitated for a moment, then Jillian knelt down to let me step off if they wanted to. "But I want to just leave," he admitted. His reply was, "Not if you're staying out here alone." He glanced at the endless wilderness around them, beautiful, unfamiliar. "Do you want some company?" Give me a moment. Alright, guys. I just said, I have ways to get back to my own home. I did have a bunch of family Pokemon, including a Totodile, Chikorita, Cyndaquil, and Baby Lugia. They were very protective over me. They could even speak English, go and train themselves, even evolve or devolve themselves into their different forms. I don't know how safe it would be, but I also have a pet Tyrannosaurus Rex that could also help me. When I started listing off a whole list of amazing creatures, Chris's eyes widened. Wait! Whoa, whoa, whoa! Hold on! He said, surprised and stunned and completely intrigued. He stared at me and just went, "Did I just hear you right? You you have a gosh dang Tyrannosaurus Rex?" Give me a moment. Alright, guys. I said, "Yeah, he's usually a very big sweetheart and very protective over me. However, let's just say certain events happen that make him pretty dangerous if not careful. That was a Trico that got very angry about something that wasn't under my control. He took out his anger on me, time and time again, doing a whole bunch of stuff, especially my pet dinosaur. I'm still going through stuff because of him right now. He has the ability to turn into any Pokemon, mythical creature, or regular animal he wants. However, he switches between being super nice like he usually is and becoming very aggressive and hostile towards me. He even thinks of me as his father and loves me to pieces. But again, with what Trico did, I always have to be careful around him. Gosh dang, Chris breathed, shaking his head in disbelief. It was as I explained what had happened with Trico. It was hard to believe a creature like that could be so gentle at times, but so dangerous at others. Then something Trenton had said earlier suddenly clicked. He looked down confused. Wait, you say he thinks you're his father? Chris said, raising an eyebrow. Give me a moment. Alright, guys. I just said, yeah. A friendly crawler I know found his egg and decided to give it to me as a gift one day. He's always called me his dad and has even been very, very protective over me. Chris blinked rapidly, trying to wrap his head around the sheer absurdity and wholesomeness of the situation. You you have a T-Rex that calls you dad. He took a deep breath. I don't know where to be, amazed or terrified. Maybe both. Then slowly he started laughing. Trenton, you are wild. He looked at the forest around him. So, where is he? Chris asked cautiously, suddenly glancing around just in case a giant carnivore's dinosaur was about to come sprinting out of the tree toward them. Oh boy. Give me a moment, guys. Alright, guys. I said, I honestly don't know. Normally he'd be at my home, but I don't even know how far away I am from my home. There's been a lot of problems I've had thanks to what Trico did. But here's the thing. Ever since he made Retzi keep switching from being nice to being aggressive, there's been one thing I've noticed about him, and that's the fact that he seems to know where I always am. I could be miles away from him, and when I'm just talking to a Pokemon or something like that, he would just show up as a dragon, and in most cases try to attack me. Wait, he would just show up? Chris was even more confused now. A T-Rex was already insane enough, but a T-Rex that could track him down anywhere in the forest and who switched from being super aggressive to super loving on a dime was even crazier to try and process. How would he know where to find you, though? Did this carnivorous, massive dinosaur have a sixth sense or something? Give me a moment. Alright, guys. I just told him, I don't know how it happened. He never could do it until after Trico cursed him to keep switching from being nice to being aggressive. That's not all either. He would act like a completely different creature at times. For example, sometimes he would turn into an Feralier or an Aggron and be pretty aggressive. Sometimes he would turn into a Totodile or a Lugia but still act like his sweet, playful, protective self. Wow. Chris shook his head, still trying to wrap his mind around the whole concept of this massive creature being able to turn into any other kind of animal and act like a completely different being whatever he wanted. It was a little insane, but also kind of amazing. That's honestly pretty amazing. He said bad, but in the other way around, Chris admitted, laughing. It's just also pretty dang scary that he can go from being your loving son to wanting to eat your head off. Give me a moment, guys. Alright, guys. I said, that's what makes it dangerous, though. When he acts like those other creatures, I have to talk to him like he is that creature, especially as the aggressive ones, And usually when I do that, I eventually gain that creature's trust again. It would be safer for me to call my baby Lugia since I know he can also fly to me. I know Almapola and Rexy are worried sick. I'm just worried to risk calling Rexy and then him want to kill me no matter what creature he is, or even if he is himself, because sometimes he doesn't transform at all but can still become aggressive towards me for no reason even though he loves me. I'm not repeating what he said, but I'm going to say, holy crap. Excuse me, Chris was out of breath, running a hand through his hair. He's only felt paying a sympathetic concern. They have saved a bunch of creatures, but for me to have to go back to a home like that, where he constantly had to walk on eggshells, lest this creature that was like a son to him suddenly turn against him, was a difficult reality to think about. Dang, man. He's like, well, I don't know how you do it. I'd be so scared. Give me a moment, guys. Alright, guys. I said, yeah, but the real him would never act like that. After he snaps out of it, he always feels super guilty. I've even caught him about to cry multiple times afterwards, so he doesn't want to do it on purpose. There's a lot more you don't even know about that happened even before this one. Even before this. One time, Trico literally turned him into a zombie, and the only words that could come out of his mouth was, brain. Oh, heck no! Chris only looked horrified. Zombie? Zombie? He held his hands up in surrender. Nope, 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 nope. That is way too much for me to handle right now. I think I'm just gonna pretend you didn't just say that. He exhaled sharply, rubbing his forehead. That is not normal. That is not okay. And that is not something anyone should ever have to go through. He glanced at me. I swear to frick, your life is just one insane thing after another. Yeah, and this humor really kind of is. Give me a moment. Alright, guys. Chris is now going kind of insane. It says there are so many things I could tell you because Trico has made living with Rexy a living nightmare at times. I still care about him, and I know he does deep down. The zombie thing, he was actually still friendly and still loved on me and cared about me, even protecting me still. Oh, how comforting, Chris said, his voice dripping with sarcasm. A friendly zombie dinosaur. He shook his head, running a hand through his hair again. Is there anything you've had to deal with that is normal? He's only thought about what he asked. Actually, let me rephrase. Is there anything normal that doesn't have the potential to turn into a complete nightmare at any given moment? Give me a moment, guys. Alright, guys. It's just unfortunately not much. Although a lot of it is caused by other humans and also Trico. Trust me, years ago if somebody told me that the Lugia God considered me to be his king, I would not have believed them. Did you notice how I called him son after I thanked him for teleporting us out of that facility? That's because I just found out months ago that technically he's my son. And apparently at one point in time I was his creator. Hold hold up. Chris put his hands up again, blinking over. Did you say the Lugia God is your son? He just stared at me for a good few seconds, stunned speechless. You? He glanced around like he expected the Lugia God himself to just suddenly appear in the middle of the forest. What? What are you, like the Virgin Mary? I don't even know what that is, but I'm not gonna ask. Yeah, uh, Alright, guys, sorry about that. It's just I don't really understand it completely either. I have a bit of memory of what happened, but that's only because of what the Oogie God told me months ago. From what I've heard, apparently centuries ago, I was a creator too and had my own world. But things went terribly, and I decided to get rid of it while erasing all of my memories. However, apparently, before I did that, I made a special realm for the Oogie God, and I told him when he reached his 8,000-foot tall size to recreate the world for me and watch over it. Okay, I need to stop you there for a moment. Chris held up a hand trying to wrap his head around what I was saying. So, centuries ago, you had a world that you created and something went wrong, so you erased your memories, but not before making a special realm for the Lugia God and telling him to remake the world for you. He frowned thinking of the time. But wait, how old are you exactly? Oh my gosh, give me a moment. Alright, guys, I said a few things off camera. I said, I'm not that old. Like I said, I'm still trying to remember everything myself. But I think maybe it happened is that after I erased everything, including my memory, Lugia got eventually hatched and grew up in the realm I made for him. But then when he grew up into his 80,000 foot tall height, he remade the world and eventually made re-put me back on there. It would explain why he would give me all of this divine power and let me use it pretty much any way I want. Okay. Chris wrote this for it, trying and failing to understand all of this. So, you created a world a really long time ago, erased the memories of everything, and made this place for the Lugia god to live, telling him to remake the world after yep, he got big enough, and now that he has, he put you into this world and gave you powers. He glanced at me, his expression bewildered. Did I get that right? Because that's an awful lot to wrap my head around. Almost. But the Oogie God created this world, the one you and me live in now. The one he lives in is a different realm that I apparently made for him centuries ago. Other than that, you got it right. And Chris Egghead Sharp was shaking his head in disbelief. Well, dang. He glanced at me, this tiny, harmless looking creature who was apparently some kind of ancient creator deity walking around with godlike powers and unknowingly reshaping reality itself without even realizing it half the time. You know, when I got captured by those scientists and they threw me in a cage with you, I thought that was insane. He laughed a little hysterically. But this is something else entirely. He glanced up at the sky toward wherever the Lugia God's realm might be. I'm so glad I wasn't caught in the middle of that. Hey, uh, if it's not much going up and down. There we go. Take God. There we go. Hey, the Lugia God doesn't mean you harm. He's been nice to me compared to most humans, so he probably really likes you. Chris glanced back down at me, a little reassured. Well, that's nice to know, I guess. I'd hate for some giant sky god I've never met to be plotting against me. He chuckled a little wearily. I'll take your word for it. I'm not going to question a word of it. He glanced up at a forest ahead of him. What now? You said something about a T-Rex before. And here's what I told him. Yeah, I'll try calling him in a minute. But there is one thing I need to tell you. The Lucky God has not been happy with how people have treated me, and he told me about a month ago about how if people don't quit hurting me, some bad events will happen to them. Chris paused mid-step. He slowly turned his head toward me, his eyes widening. Oh! That sounded ominous. He swallowed nervously. So, hypothetically, if, say, a random human did happen to accidentally hiss you off, he paused, thinking better of it. Actually, never mind. I don't think I want to know. He exhaled shakily. I'll just keep being nice. A beat. Very nice. Alright, guys, that's where I actually stopped it. Give me a second. Alright, guys. I just told him, it makes sense why he's like that, though. If I really did create him a long time ago and he considers me his dad, of course he's gonna be protective. I'm sure anybody would. Get a child. Would you not be protective over them? You know that what I mean? Well, of course I would be protective of my child. Obviously. As Chris spoke, an image flashed unbidden into his mind. A vision of what a tiny child of his would look like, with his same dark hair and eyes, running through a field of wildflowers, giggling happily as they chased butterflies. He blinked slowly, shocked by the sudden mental image. He pushed it quickly and forcefully out of his mind. That's just what any parent does. Give me a moment, guys. Alright, guys. I said, that's probably how the Lugia God sees me. He still thinks of me as his dad, but sees how people are treating me. I'm honestly the same way towards my Pokemon and Rexy. I pet Tyrannosaurus Rex. I'm pretty sure whatever the Lugia God decided to do, he would make sure it would not hurt me, because he wants me to be safe. That's honestly pretty heartwarming. Chris only found his entire view of the Lugia god was shifting. All this time he had always just thought of the massive sky deity as some terrifying, incomprehensible cosmic being that was not to be trifled with. Now the way I explained everything, he suddenly seemed a lot like normal, like a normal guy who just wanted to protect his family. The normal guy who happened to be an enormous, all-powerful bird god. Oh my gosh! Give me a moment. Alright, guys. I know it's up to take in, but think about it this way. He's probably doing it because he wants me to be safe and healthy and not always have to fear about going anywhere. This incident with people taking me to this facility and trapping me here probably made him 20 times more angry. Just continue being nice to me like you have been today, and I'll promise you the Luigi God will not hurt you. Okay, I believe you. I'll be good. Chris nodded, trying to process everything that had been said to him. It was a lot to process, like trying to drink from a fire hydrant. There was just so much information, it was hard to wrap his head all around it all. But he believed me, and if I said the Lugia God wouldn't hurt him, he would take his word for it. For as bull back crap as all of this was, he really had no reason to lie. Give me a moment. Alright, guys. I said, alright, it's getting really late now. Are you ready to see my pet Tyrannosaurus Rex potentially as a dragon or some other creature? Remember, I don't know if he's going to be real aggressive, so just whatever happens, don't try to make him any more angry than he already might be. If he's angry acting like a different creature, I can try calming him down. Chris swallowed anxiously at the thought of meeting Rexy. Of course, the idea of a real-life carnivorous dinosaur sounded super awesome, just the kind of thing that was up his alley. Knowing that this one might potentially be aggressive was a different story. He glanced at me, trying to keep his tone even. Okay. Yeah. Let's, let's try it. Alright, guys, we're almost done. Give me a moment. Alright, guys, real quickly. I just said, okay, and turn the face completely forward and say, Rexy, Rexy, buddy, I know you've been worried about me. Please, wherever you are, come to where I am. Chris held his breath as they waited, his heart starting to beat a little faster. What the heck was he getting into? He was about to be an actual real-life carnivore from the Jurassic period, and one that was currently hissed at him no less. He glanced around the surrounding forest, trying and failing to spot any signs of life. Triton? He said, trying not to sound too anxious. Are you sure he's going to come? Yeah, he usually always does at one point, whether I call him or not. Remember, we don't know how far away. Money! Alright, guys, real quick. It says, yeah, he usually always does at one point, whether I call him or not. Remember, we don't know how far away my home is. He could be He could be 30 miles away, not money. He could be 30 miles away from us, maybe way more, not money miles away. Chris exhaled softly, nodding. Right. Yeah, it makes sense. He hesitated, glancing at me. Alright, guys, real quickly. It says Chris exhaled softly, slowly, nodding. Right. Yeah, makes sense. He hesitated, glancing at me. Do you think he'll be mad when he gets here? Or, is there a chance he won't be? He really hoped it was the latter. Meeting a T-Rex sounded awesome. Meeting a hissed off T-Rex? Less so. I wish I could tell you, but I don't know. Just give him a minute. Alright, I'll try not to. Suddenly, Chris froze, cutting himself off. He had heard faint, synthetic footsteps in the distance. He couldn't see the source yet, but the sound seemed to be coming from between the trees. Triton? He said, starting to look a little nervous. I think he might be getting close. Give me a moment, guys. Alright, guys. It says, hearing a slight noise, I look in the direction I heard it coming from. If it is him, I hope he's friendly. Because if anything, he'll be trying to hurt me if he's aggressive. If he's nice, he might become very protective over me, especially since he hasn't seen me in a while since I've been stuck at this facility. The sound was steadily getting closer now as the source of it slowly made its way toward them. Chris stared in the direction the noise was coming from, suddenly feeling very exposed. He took a step closer to me, almost instinctively. He glanced over at me. Wait, he'll hurt you if he's aggressive? How how strong is he exactly? Give me a moment. Alright, guys. It says that depends on what he is transformed into. If he's something like a dragon or a fur alligator, probably pretty strong. If he's his normal self, he's definitely going to be strong, whether he's aggressive or not, just because he's a Tyrannosaurus Rex. For all we know, he could be a Totodile, or a dragon. We don't know until he gets here. I just hope he doesn't try to kill me. Chris frowned, hogging uncertainty anymore. This whole situation honestly terrified him. Sure, I said that this creature was basically his son, that normally he would be friendly, but this was a hissed off, carnivorous dinosaur that could turn into anything, anything at all, and he could hurt me. His frown deepened. Uh, Triton, can I ask a question? I just told him yes, guys. I'm trying to hope that it hurries up because I'm trying to see if I can get this done for you. If I know what Rexy is, I can actually. My idea is to figure out what Rexy is and then maybe be able to do with that maybe in another shorter video. Chris hesitated, choosing his words carefully. If Rexy is normally so protective over you, if he cares about you so much, then why hasn't he already done something about Trico? He glanced at Triton. It just doesn't make sense to me. Give me a moment. Yep. Alright, guys. He really wants to do something. He really wants to do something, but that Pokemon escapes very fast. When he first put this curse on him, he was gone within just a few seconds, and by that point, Rexy was already starting to switch and trying to attack me. Oh, Chris frowned thinking over. That was a pretty good explanation. After all, Tyrannosaurus Rex wasn't exactly going to be as fast as Trico was. He took a breath, trying to calm himself down. Okay, he said, nodding slowly. That that makes sense. Give me a moment. Alright, guys. It says despite knowing how dangerous it was and not completely knowing what was coming, I decided to call Rexy again. Rexy, Dave's over here, buddy. Getting closer, if that's your footsteps I'm hearing. Chris tensed even more, his heart rate increasing as he heard the sound growing louder. Triton? Are you sure you should? But it was too late. The sound was much closer now, coming from somewhere just in front of him. The trees just up ahead shook with the rhythmic thumping footfalls. Yep, and I just look at where the trees shook. I want money. Alright, guys, real quick. I need to see what Rexy is, so when next time I do a shorter version of it, I can actually, see what I can deal with. I just look where the trees shook and say, Rexy? The trees shook harder, the thumping getting closer. The footfalls sounded big. The creature was getting close. Chris couldn't keep the anxiety out of his voice now. Triton? He's really close. Give me one. Alright, guys, this will probably be the last one. Just that way, if I need to do this on a cliffhanger, I can actually do it in a shorter video next time, even if the video is extremely short. I said, I really turned to Chris and tell him, don't worry. If anybody's going to be in danger, it's going to be me. If he's aggressive, he's going to try probably hurting me at first. Money, money! Alright, guys, here's what it says. It says, I really turn to Chris and tell him, don't worry. If anybody's going to be in danger, it's going to be me. If he's aggressive, he's going to try probably hurting me at first. If he's sweet, he'll probably be thinking about the fact that he gets to see me. If he's aggressive, just give me a moment to talk to him. I've got him to calm down plenty of times. Okay. Okay, just be careful. Chris urged, his hand shaking slightly. The footfalls were right there now. Whatever was approaching was just beyond the trees. He didn't know what to expect. A T-Rex? A dragon? A totodile? The suspense was killing him. And then the creature stepped into view, and Chris stared. Oh! He breathed, because standing there was a Tyrannosaurus Rex. Not transformed, not angry. Just standing there, blinking at Triton with big, worried eyes. His massive tail swayed gently as he stared at me, before letting out a soft, relieved chirp. Oh, thank goodness! Chris said, relaxing himself. Triton had been right. He was still his sweet self, and he had missed them. Chris watched as Reggie took a step forward, lowering his massive head as if wanting me to pet him. And despite the fact that he was still a giant carnivore, he suddenly seemed adorable. Chris laughed softly, shaking his head. Well, I guess you were right. Like I said, guys, that's kind of an abrupt stop. The video's been an hour and 10 minutes. I will finish this up in a shorter video, a much shorter video. In fact, I wouldn't be off the next video I did. This will be only like 5-10 minutes at most. I'll see you guys for that. I gotta get things going.